we learned about implantation, where the blastocyst is composed of single layer of flattened cells called trophoblast and smaller cluster of 20 to 30 rounded cells called the inner cell mass. Blastocyst is composed of trophoblast and the inner cell mass, where the inner cell mass of the blastocyst develops into the embryo and becomes embedded in the endometrium of the uterus. This process is called implantation and it results in pregnancy. So after implantation, the particular person is now pregnant. Next, we are going to learn about how the pregnancy is maintained, that is maintenance of pregnancy. So now the uterus consists of the embryo. The embryo is there in the uterus. It should be protected by something. Okay, so how the pregnancy is maintained, we are going to learn. So here the inner cell mass in the blastula is differentiated into epiblast and hypoblast immediately after implantation. So we learned the cell mass develops into the embryo. Okay, inner cell mass of the blastocyst develops into the embryo, where the inner cell mass again differentiated into epiblast and hypoblast immediately after implantation. The hypoblast is the embryonic endoderm and the epiblast is the ectoderm. So hypoblast is the embryonic endoderm and epiblast is the ectoderm. The cells remaining in between the epiblast and the endoderm form the mesoderm. So 3 germ layers are formed. What are the 3 germ layers? Ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm. How they are formed? The hypoblast is the embryonic endoderm and the epiblast is the ectoderm, where the cells remaining in between the epiblast and the endoderm form the mesoderm. Thus, the transformation of the blastocyst into a gastrula with the primary germ layers, that is ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm, by the movement of the blastomeres is called gastrulation. So what is gastrulation? The transformation of the blastocyst into gastrula with the primary germ layers. What are the 3 germ layers? Ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm by the movement of the blastomere is called gastrulation. Each germ layer gives rise to specific tissues, organs and organ system during organogenesis. So from these 3 germ layers, the specific tissues, organs and organ systems are formed during organogenesis, that is the formation of organs. Okay, so here I will repeat again, the inner cell mass in the blastula is differentiated into epiblast and hypoblast immediately after implantation. The hypoblast is the embryonic endoderm and the epiblast is the ectoderm. The cells remaining in between are called the mesoderm. Thus, the transformation of the blastocyst into a gastrula with the primary germ layers by the movement of the blastomere is called gastrulation. Each germ layers give rise to specific tissues, organ and organ systems during organogenesis. The extra-embryonic membranes, namely the amnion, yolk sac, allantois and chorion, protect the embryo from desiccation, mechanical shock and help in the absorption of nutrients and exchange of gases. Some extra-embryonic membranes are present. So that now the embryo is present in the uterus. Apart from the embryo, some other membranes are protecting the embryo, that is extra embryonic membranes, namely the amnion, yolk sac, allantois and chorion protect the embryo from desiccation, mechanical shock, and help in the absorption of nutrients and exchange of gases. The amnion is a double-layered translucent membrane filled with amniotic fluid. So first we are going to learn about the amnion. It is a double-layered translucent membrane filled with a fluid. What is the fluid name? Amniotic fluid. It provides a buoyant environment to protect the developing embryo from injury, regulates the temperature of the fetus, and provides a medium in which fetus can move. So you can imagine this particular embryo is present inside the amniotic fluid so that it can float, and also it will protect the developing embryo from injury, regulates the temperature of the fetus, and provides a medium in which the fetus can move. Hope you understand amnion. Amnion is a double-layered translucent membrane filled with amniotic fluid. What are the functions? It provides buoyant environment to protect the developing embryo from injury, regulates the temperature of the fetus, and provides a medium in which the fetus can move. Next, we are going to learn about yolk sac. Yolk sac forms a part of the gut and is the source of the earliest blood cells and blood vessels. So, yolk sac functions as the organ of circulation. So, where yolk sac forms a part of the gut and is the source of the earliest blood cells and the blood vessels. Next, we are going to learn about allantois. The allantois forms a small outpocketing of embryonic tissue at the caudal end of the yolk sac. It is the structural base for the umbilical cord that links the embryo to the placenta, and ultimately it becomes part of the urinary bladder. So allantois forms the small outpocketing of embryonic tissue at the caudal end of the yolk sac. Where it is present? It is present at the caudal end of the yolk sac as a small outpocketing of embryonic tissue. It is the structural base for the umbilical cord that links the embryo to the placenta. So which is the base for the umbilical cord? Allantois. It is the structural base for the umbilical cord that links the embryo to the placenta. So you know the umbilical cord of the fetus is connected to the mother through the placenta. Okay, so which forms the structural base for the umbilical cord? Allantois. So allantois is the structural base for the umbilical cord that links the embryo to the placenta, and ultimately it becomes the part of urinary bladder. Next, we are going to learn about chorion. So we have completed amnion, yolk sac, allantois. Next one is the chorion. The chorion is the outermost membrane which encloses the embryo and all other membranes, and also helps in the formation of placenta. So what is the chorion? Chorion is the outermost membrane. So which is the outermost in the extra embryonic membrane? Chorion, which encloses the embryo and all other membranes, and also help in the formation of placenta. So chorion is the outermost layer. It encloses the embryo and also all other membranes. What is the function? It helps in the formation of placenta. The trophoblast cells in the blastocyst send out several finger-like projections called chorionic villi, carrying fetal blood, and are surrounded by sinuses that contain maternal blood. The chorionic villi and the uterine tissues form the disc-shaped placenta. Placenta is a temporary endocrine organ formed during pregnancy, and it connects the fetus to the uterine wall through the umbilical cord. So what is chorionic villi? The trophoblast cells in the blastocyst send out several finger-like projections called chorionic villi. How the chorionic villi is formed? From the trophoblast cells in the blastocyst. So you should remember, blastocyst is composed of trophoblast and inner cell mass. Inner cell mass forms the embryo. Now we are learning about the trophoblast. What is the role of trophoblast? Okay. So here the trophoblast cells in the blastocyst send out several finger-like projections called chorionic villi. What is the function? Carrying fetal blood and are surrounded by sinuses that contain maternal blood. The chorionic villi and the uterine tissues form the disc-shaped placenta. The chorionic villi and the uterine tissues form the disc-shaped placenta. So you know what is placenta? It is a temporary endocrine organ formed during pregnancy, and it connects the fetus to the uterine wall through the umbilical cord. Placenta is the connection between the fetus and the mother through the umbilical cord. Then it is the organ by which the nutritive, respiratory and excretory functions are fulfilled. So which is the organ? Placenta. It is the organ by which the nutritive, respiratory and excretory functions are fulfilled. The embryo's heart develops during the 4th week of pregnancy. So the embryo's heart develops during the 4th week of pregnancy and circulates blood through the umbilical cord and placenta as well as through its own tissues. So when the heart develops in an embryo? Only during the 4th week of pregnancy and circulates the blood through the umbilical cord and placenta as well as through its own tissues.